STAR redesign webpage. We got here in the last video by visiting texasassessment.gov, clicking Educators, House Bill 3906, and then the STAR redesign link. So one other important feature that I want you to make sure to look at is the rubrics for the short constructed and extended constructed responses, as well as the example answers, because those contain exemplars that could really help your students and you have a better understanding of what it takes to get the highest scores possible on these writing questions. Okay. So once again, under new question types, we do have the STAR scoring guides. It says samples. So you have your RLA. These are the tests where students will have short constructed responses and extended constructed responses. Your science and your social studies test will have short constructed responses. Okay, so if we want to just use this 3 through 5 RLA constructed response scoring guide as an example, we can pull that up. And then it gives us some general information here about scoring. So what this tells us is, right here, essays will be scored using a 5-point rubric. Okay, so your extended constructed responses will be scored using a 5-point rubric. Short constructed responses that are in the reading domain will be scored using a 2-point prompt-specific rubric. So these could be prompts that ask the student to answer something about a text and probably support that response with evidence. So they're asking for 2 things there, which would be worth 2 points. Now, there are also going to be short constructed responses in the writing domain. These will be scored using a 1-point rubric. So these would be probably an editing question where maybe the test shows a sentence of text that has some issues. Maybe there's a comma in the wrong spot. There's some type of editing needs to happen. And so in the response box, the student might have to type the sentence correctly. So that would be a case where it's either right or it's wrong. So that would be 1 point. Okay. This part right here goes into more detail about the extended constructed responses, letting you know that even though it's a 5-point rubric, that those 5 points are made up of 2 different components. First, you have the organization and development of ideas. That's worth 3 points at most. And then you have the grammar and mechanics portion that's worth 2 points. So all of that being 5. Now, this also lets you know that extended constructed responses are scored by 2 different scores, and the scores are summed up to create the student's final score. So the maximum points a student could earn on an extended constructed response or their essay is 10 points. Okay, good information to have. All right, so keep on scrolling down here. So this is going to give you examples. Right here we have a passage. Students will read. Keeping on. All right, and so this is a grade 5 reading short constructed response. So keep in mind the short constructed responses that are part of a reading passage are worth 2 points. So it gives you an example of the prompt. What is the central idea of the article? Support your answer with evidence from the article. So this is worth a point, and then this is worth a point. So the central idea is one, support is the other. Okay. Now underneath that, it shows you for the first part, a complete response will provide one of the following possible central ideas. And it gives you 4 possible answer choices for main idea. Okay. And then a complete response will include at least 1 piece of supporting evidence from the text. So only 1 piece of evidence is needed. And the complete response may include, but is not limited to, the following evidence: cited or paraphrased from the text. So students don't necessarily have to use a direct quote. They could paraphrase information as long as they are offering some type of support for their response to what is the central idea. Then we're headed in the right direction. And these are all examples of what they could use to support their central idea. Okay. Now it's going to show us, so score of 1 would be a partial response. Maybe they give you the central idea, but they don't offer support. Maybe they're just a little off. 0, the response is just incorrect. It's not based on the text, or they just skipped it. The part that's really neat here, though, is the sample student responses. So this is showing you what would earn a score of 0. And then underneath that, though, it's a rationale. So those rationales are really important pieces that you and your students could read to get an understanding of how something is scored, maybe a 1 instead of a 2, especially when you get to your extended constructed responses. That is going to be very helpful in helping you determine what do you need to do to get 3 points versus 2 points for the content portion, organization and development. Okay, so here is the extended constructed response. It's showing you how this is broken down into the first 3 points, and then you've got the second 2 points for conventions. Okay. All right, and then once again, we have some examples of what would score a 0 and then the rationale. And then what would score a 1 and the rationale, so on and so forth. So these are really great things that you can look at with your students, kind of talk through what are some good things they did, what are some things they could have improved on in this example, how could we improve it? But really great resources. Okay, so that goes on and on and on. If you are a science or a social studies teacher, you also have your short constructed response samples here that you can go in and look at, read through those, look at your exemplars, share those with your students. That is it. If you have any questions about redesign resources, please feel free to reach out to me, Jessica Helfers. I'm happy to help point you in the right direction for getting more information if I can.